Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tobey'S Talkshow. This is episode number 18, and today we have a very special guest. I'm here on the show with Mike Vorkunov. Mike is a Knicks and NBA writer for The Athletic, as well as the co-founder of the 30 newsletter. Mike, thank you so much for being a guest on my show, and I'm so excited for this episode because today we get to talk about my favorite team, the Knicks. Mike, it is so great to have you on the show.
Toby, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, it's going to be a great episode. I'm very excited. So I do have a few questions to start us off, and then we could just jump right into the Knicks drama because there always seems to be drama down at the Mecca. So my first question is because as we know, we're going through this pandemic right now with COVID-19. I was wondering what did a day in your life kind of look like before that, and how has your daily routine changed because of COVID-19?
Oh man, daily routine is altogether changed. Let's say if it was a home game, I would spend the morning and the early part of the afternoon just working on stories, maybe making calls, transcribing, whatever it is, and then around 3:00 you go over to the arena. I try to get there by about 4:30, which is about 3 hours before the game starts. Try to talk to people on the court before the game, try to see if anyone's working out, just do that type of stuff. And media availability in the locker rooms begins at 6:15 before the game at 7:30. And so you have some free time, you have some leeway. On the game, really, you try to get most of your work done for the day by the time the game starts. Now it's completely changed. I'm trying to keep somewhat regular hours if it's possible. Working 9 to 5 again, trying to make calls, figure out what to write, see if I can talk to people for stories, watch video, let's say, of getting ready for draft prospects. The big X factor in all of that is, I'm home with my wife. We have a kid. I don't know if you'll hear on this thing. So trying to do all that. Take care of her, and you're just splitting your time between being a parent and trying to do your job, and there's a lot less consistency and there's a lot less schedule for the last 3 weeks or whatever that we've been doing this.
Yeah, so it's a lot more like digital work. Trying to contact. So I see you went to Rutgers, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering how you first began your sports career. As someone like me who wants to kind of get into the sports industry, I was wondering to learn how someone like you decided that you wanted to work in the sports industry, and what steps did you take to get there?
I didn't decide until late in my college career that I wanted to make this something I could do professionally. I joined the radio station WRSU at Rutgers my freshman year just for fun. I love sports, obviously, and it seemed like an interesting thing to do. My sophomore year, I started writing for the school paper. I only want to cover track and field for them because I ran track in high school, and I was like, all right, I know the sport. I can go cover a few things and, write a few stories and get out. Mm-hmm. But I really seemed to like it. Apparently, I wasn't bad at it. They kept, letting me cover soccer and then cover basketball. And I really loved what I was doing. I liked writing. I liked reporting. I liked talking to people. It was nice that you just watch sports, right? Like, that's your job.
Yeah.
I couldn't get any internships out of college. I couldn't get any internships my senior year, no jobs or anything like that. So I worked odd jobs after I graduated. And one day, the New York Star Ledger, which is now NJ Advanced Media, the sports editor, Drew Van Esselstyn, called me up and he said they had an availability for a sports intern. Did I want it? And I said, yeah. And so that was April after I graduated. And I was able to turn that internship into a job at the Star Ledger. And that was really my break into the industry. It takes a lot of luck, I think, unless you know someone who can just give you a job right out of college. It takes luck. It takes skill. For me, I just backed into it a little bit.
That's actually very interesting. Kind of you were doing these jobs, not expecting to get that type of offer.
I didn't think it would come.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then my last question before we start talking about the Knicks is, as you are a sports writer, what is your favorite part of being a sports writer? What are the pros and cons of your job? And did you always I know right after college you might have not thought of it, but did you kind of know in the back of your head that you wanted to be in the sports industry, or was it just because of that offer you decided to take it because you loved sports?
I I always wanted to be a sports writer once I started doing it in college and really liked it. I was hoping I could get that job offer. It came and that was good. And if not, I was ready to do something else. To be in sports, I only wanted to do it as a sports writer. I didn't want to be, working for a team or being an agent or anything like that. For whatever reason, I really like journalism and the reporting part and being on the media side of things. Now I would say my favorite parts of the job are I love reporting. I like writing. I like coming up with ideas. I like talking to people and just figuring out people's stories and trying to tell a story that no one has read before, that no one has heard before. I would say the worst part of my job is probably, it's two things. One, flying, because I hate flying. I've had to fly a lot, so I've gotten a little bit used to it. I'm still not sure I'm comfortable when I get on a plane. I don't know the next time I'll be on a plane anyway, so that might all be moot. The other part of my job that I hate is writing. I think a lot of writers will tell you that because writing is very hard. It's difficult. It's taxing. It's good. You kind of have a love-hate relationship, I think, when you're a reporter because it is so hard and it's so difficult to make a good story. And that's kind of what I like. I like exploring things. I like the fact that every day can be different and you get to learn new things and get answers to questions you might have.
Now, I have to ask you before we start diving into the Knicks.
Okay.
Why did you start becoming a fan of the Knicks?
I wasn't a fan of the Knicks, but I'd always wanted to cover the NBA. And obviously being in New York and I live in Jersey, the Knicks have been, I don't know, they're one of the marquee NBA teams, right? And so to cover the Knicks as an NBA beat, that's a great job to have. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult job. Yeah. There's sometimes a lot of headaches involved. Covering the Knicks isn't easy. But it's a really fun job. And if you're looking for a team to cover in the NBA, if you can't cover one of the stars like LeBron or Giannis or whoever, the Knicks are a great team to cover. And it's a lot of fun. I've always wanted to be an NBA beat writer. And so to get the chance to do it for The Athletic and cover the Knicks, it's a dream come true.
Yeah. So my first question, it's not going to be like an interview thing anymore. It's going to be just like us talking about the Knicks.
Sure.
But do you think that RJ Barrett can actually be the franchise cornerstone of the Knicks? Or do you think it's going to happen where we would have to get lucky in the draft and then we would have another guy step in and he would be the second need?
That's interesting. I thought he had kind of a good rookie year.
I agree.
Obviously, there's still a lot of question marks about his game. Can he shoot? That's the big one. That's probably going to determine how good of a player he eventually becomes.
Well, I also think Knicks management, I think they put him in a position where he wasn't supposed to succeed. How I see it is when you have a ball stopper like Julius Randle as your power forward that likes to play point guard for some reason or just likes to have the ball in his hands, it's hard for RJ to get the ball in his hands and let his offense do his thing. From the games I've seen, I've watched a lot of games this year, sadly. But from the games I've seen, it's like RJ's in the corner, standing there, waiting to get the ball, waiting for him to let him get to the basket or take a shot.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Look, the Knicks didn't do him any favors with the roster that they put around them, right? Not a lot of shooting. Well, what was the thing on RJ coming out of the draft? Surround him with shooting, help him get spacing, right. And the Knicks did the opposite of that. So it didn't help him his rookie year. I still saw some good things. I still think he can be a very good NBA player. Mm-hmm. Even if he becomes an all-star, though, you still need to get lucky in the draft and put more talent around them, right? It's not a one or the other type of thing. I think he's a good starting point. Him and Mitchell Robinson are two good foundational pieces for the Knicks. I don't know what you think about Mitch. But it seems like the Knicks have a pretty good start there, but they just need so much more, They need to hit on their lottery picks going forward. They need to hope Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina get better and mature and become even starters, right? Not even all-star level players, just starter level players. But, RJ's a good start. I don't know what they'll do in the draft this year. I don't know. I mean, they could pick anywhere from 1st to 8th, right?
I think point guard. I think with the large depth of point guards, I think they're good. I think there'll be 2 or 3 left at that point where they'll be okay, here's a good amount of point guards. Let's surround RJ with someone that could also drive to the basket and could spread the floor more also for Mitchell Robinson. Because when you have someone like a shooting point guard like Elfrid Payton for us wasn't a shooting point guard, Frank Ntilikina can't shoot the ball. like when you have those type of point guards, it's hard to open up space for Mitchell Robinson. So I think at least if we get a point guard that could kind of develop a shot, or have a shot that people are like, okay, we have to guard this man close. When you do those pick and rolls with Mitchell Robinson, I think that will open up. I think that will help him as well with RJ. But that kind of,
but I don't know if you're thinking about it. One of the things about the point guards that could be taken high in the draft, LaMelo Ball, he's not known as a shooter, right? That's a big question mark about his game. Cole Anthony didn't have a good shooting year at UNC. Killian Hayes seems to shoot pretty well in Germany, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be necessarily able to add a good shooting point guard for next year, and so that complicates the whole thing too.
Well, there's also been rumors about Chris Paul. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen.
That's pull off.
Yeah. So kind of going off that point of the young guys, I have an idea of why. But why do you think we just seem like we just don't like playing the young guys? Why do you think it seems like we never play our young guys ever? I have a reason, but I want to hear your reason first.
Okay. I think a lot of it has to do, I think it's actually pretty simple. The Knicks were trying to win games this year. The veterans are still better than the young players, right? The reason to play the young guys is so you give them minutes so they can develop, so they can get better and mature, all that type of stuff. But it doesn't mean they're better than, Wayne Ellington right now or Elfrid Payton right now or any of those things. And so the Knicks prioritized winning games in the short term over long-term development. And that, I think they should have gone the other way. I've written it a bunch that they should have played the young guys and chosen development and what the next 2 years will look like instead of getting to 30 wins or whatever this year. I think in the end that's going to hurt them. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I don't know if you think it's something different.
Well, here's my thoughts. I thought, okay, at the beginning of the year it's fine. Like you're going to try to win games. Every team is 0-0. It's how that works. Every team's going to try to win games. But then there's a point where you realize you get hit in the face and you go, okay, we're not making the playoffs this year. It's over. And I think we've already reached that point where all Knicks fans, and hopefully most of management, realizes that we're done for the playoffs. The NBA season might even continue. It might go straight to the playoffs. But if the regular season games did continue, like it should have, then I don't think we're making the playoffs. I don't think there's a chance. So I think when teams get to that point, I think that's when teams start to focus more on the young guys. And I think that's a little bit of what we did last year. I know Knox kind of got put in the starting lineup last year, midway through the season. So we kind of did that last year. However, I think, on First Take, Steve Stout said those comments about Mike Miller. And so my thing is that, Mike Miller knows he's not going to be at least the head coach next year, right? So if he knows that, he's going to try to get his resume to the best it could be. Because if he's going to try to get another opportunity somewhere else, let's say he doesn't sign back as an assistant coach or a defensive coach with the Knicks. Let's say he's heard rumors that maybe another team wants him. He wants his resume to look the best it can. Look, the Knicks were 17 wins last year. I came in 30 games late, and I got them 25 wins, whatever we'll end up with. So I think, you can't blame Mike Miller for it because, look, everyone is independent. Everyone tries to get a job. Everyone's trying to make money. And so you have to understand that Mike Miller, at least from my point of view, is trying to win as many games as he can. And like you said, maybe right now Wayne Ellington is better than a Kevin Knox. But for the future of the team, I think that's where our management really has to step in, which it hasn't been doing. It hasn't spoken since November. I think that's when management at least has to step in and be like, look, it's time to play the young guys. Because Knox, when you're like Knox and you're someone that doesn't have that much confidence in yourself, and you're in a big city with everyone rooting for you, but at the same time, if you're not playing well, everyone will turn against you in a second. If you're playing 14 minutes a night and you take 2 shots a game and you miss both, that kills your confidence. So I think, guys like Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina, who's had their confidence up and down, I think they should be playing more just also for their experience, but also so they could get their confidence up and not play 6 minutes a night and miss 2 shots and feel like they play terribly.
I think that's reasonable. I think you're right. A lot of it does come down to management. If the front office decided in January, okay, I forget what the record was, but it was pretty bad, right? And they said, look, let's look to next season and let's start playing Kevin Knox and Ntilikina, all those guys, 25 minutes a night. I think then it would have happened, right? Mike Miller wouldn't have disregarded management at that point as the interim head coach. So it's got to be a top-down decision, and the Knicks never just pivoted that way. They kept trying to make the most of the season. There's a lot of self-interest involved, right? It's only natural, too, that you want to maximize the wins and the season and make your record look as good as it does. And I don't blame them for it on the individual level, but I think at that point it's not in the best interest of the organization anymore.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about the veterans, do you have any veterans you would want to bring back? Because all of our veterans right now are on 1-and-1 deals. So we could, take the option because I think they're all team options, or at least most of them. And then, you could also just re-sign them. Say, look, this is too much money, but we'll give you 8 million instead of 10 million or whatever. Do you think that any of the veterans, it could be like a Reggie Bullock, do you think any of them should be brought back or try to be brought back?
I think they should keep Reggie Bullock. He's making, I think, like $4.2 million next year. I think he's a good shooter. He's proved to be kind of a capable defender this year. It's such a good contract for him that they should bring him back. I'm kind of on the fence on Wayne Ellington just because I think they really need shooters, and this way you get to lock him in for 1 year, $8 million if they pick up his team option. So I think he's another guy they should consider. Really, the only other player that I would think about is Elfrid Payton. He is productive. He really did help them once he came back from his injury. A few things to worry about, or to think about rather, if we were going to bring him back, is who do you draft? If they get a point guard in the draft, it's going to be hard to make room for Payton, for Frank Ntilikina, for the point guard, Dennis Smith Jr. I think that just points to somebody getting traded. Or do you go for someone else? Can you get someone of that caliber but maybe cheaper in free agency? Right. But it's not a good free agent class of point guard. So I think Payton would probably be the only one. I would let him go. I would, like you said, try to get a point guard in the draft if you can, and just give him the ropes, man. Just let him run the team next season as a rookie.
So another question I have. Actually, let me say my response to that. I think if we were to bring people back, I would look at Reggie Bullock and maybe Mo Harkless, but that depends on how much money he would want in free agency because we don't have the same control, I believe, as we have with our players that we signed in free agency. Mo Harkless was obviously traded in the Marcus Morris trade. But I think someone like Taj Gibson could go. I think you could bring in like a Derek Favors over a Taj Gibson, who's better, who's younger, and you could finally play Mitchell Robinson. You could start Mitchell. I don't know why Mitchell's not starting. It never has made sense to me, but I don't know. And then I think you could trade Julius Randle, clear the cap. This is my dream free agency. You clear the cap of Randle with a second. You just dump his I think he's just stopping RJ from succeeding. So if I was manager, I'd get rid of him. And then I'd look at a Christian Wood, a younger guy who could spread the floor more. He's a better 3-point shooter than Randle. And doesn't overload the ball, so that's something I would do. I think Elfrid Payton, you could get a point guard of his caliber for less money. I think he'll ask for more money than the Knicks would want to give up. And then I think Wayne Ellington, honestly you could find a better shooter for less money. I don't know how much money he's going to ask for, but I think there are more capable shooters than Wayne Ellington. I just wasn't impressed with him this year. I thought sometimes, yes, he came into the game and was hot. But at the same time, sometimes he came in and he went 0 for 4, and you're you're a shooter. What are you doing? Which is understandable, but sometimes Knicks fans get upset when you're supposed to shoot the ball and you can't do your really one job. I think who else do we sign? I think Reggie Bullock and Mo Harkless could come back. I would not be mad if we signed them. But Bobby Portis, $15 million. I heard already rumors that he's not going to be brought back on that money. But I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back for less money. I think he was probably one of the better players from our free agency. I didn't know what to expect from him because obviously I knew him from the Bulls and Wizards. But I wouldn't be mad with bringing Bobby Portis back. But besides probably Portis, Bullock, and Harkless, probably no other people. I just think I just think the Knicks should look at it okay, try to get younger guys in free agency, which we didn't really do. Try to get younger guys that maybe haven't proven themselves yet, and just let all these young guys play. At the Grizzlies, they're literally playing straight young guys. They have Brandon Clark, Jackson, Dylan Brooks, John Morant, and it's all these young guys just taking it and going. And then they have one or two vets that they need just for support, like an Anthony Tolliver they traded for, or they signed. I don't know. I know Anthony Tolliver's now on that team. So I think that's what the Knicks have to look at as an example. Look at the Grizzlies. They got their cornerstone piece that everyone knows. He's an all-star soon. He'll be an all-star probably in the next 3 years. And then you build around him with younger players that maybe you got from the draft or maybe you picked up. And I think the Grizzlies are doing a perfect example of what a lot of teams that are rebuilding should do. They're at the 8th seed right now, and they just had the second pick in the draft. So
yeah, I think that's reasonable. You just have to make sure you pick out the right guys in free agency. You know, I think it would be good to get like a Christian Wood. I had some other guys highlighted. It's not coming up to my brain. But you don't want to overpay for them. You know, for a guy like Fred VanVleet necessarily, like he could get $20 million a year. Christian Wood, I don't know, maybe he gets $15 million a year, something like that. All that depends on where the cap lands, obviously. It's just you don't want to pay too much for these guys. I think they need to bring in some players so they can make part of their like core going forward. Well, it's really hard to do that if you're turning your roster over every year in free agency and bringing in half of a new team. So I think they have to figure out a long-term plan. And then, figure out who they go with their draft pick, and then also decide where to go in free agency with the types of players that they need for the type of style that they want to play. Who's going to fit well around RJ? Who's going to fit with Mitch? Like, those are big questions, and you have to make smart decisions in free agency to find the players that'll help. I could see them bringing Bobby Portis back. He has $15 million option for next year. You don't want to pick that up. He'd be better at a lower price, obviously, as a big man coming off the bench. He stretches the floor a little bit. I could see all that working. It's just you have to be judicious, right? Like, you have to make smart choices.
6-7 million. My next question for you is, so there's believed to be a lot of front office changes coming this summer. Do you like Scott Perry, A, and B, would you like to see him gone? Or do you think he should leave? Or like, do you think that will get rid of him? And the same thing with Mike Miller.
Honestly, I think the fact that this season has stopped, and then the off season has stopped, and like, there's just, the hard thing about it is, right, if the season was just canceled, teams can move on to the off season, and you could proceed that way. Now you don't know what's going to happen. There still might be more games at the end of this, so you can't quite go on with your coaching search because you don't want to undercut the guy who might come back and coach your team for 5 more games. I think it's going to be hard. I think initially Leon Rose was probably going to bring in his own GM, his own coach, and those are the types of things that any new team president does. Right. At this point, you need Scott Perry, you need all the scouts who have been there for the draft. Like, everything is just thrown into a mix. I don't really know how to predict it just because of how weird and unprecedented all this is. I'd say in normal circumstances, new guy in charge brings in his new front office. Now, I have no idea. I don't even know what the right move is. Like, all these teams are going to be on different timelines if you're playing into the playoffs. It's all up in the air right now. That's kind of where we're at.
I kind of agree. I think that they'll both be gone. I was reading this list on Instagram. It was very interesting. It was like a list because obviously there are rumors about Elton Brand, but there was a list of all the moves Elton Brand did during his during his Sixers tenure. He's still there, obviously, but and then there was a list of moves that Mike Miller did, and I think both of them are competent. Scott Perry did. Scott Perry, when I was looking at all the moves, there wasn't that many that I was mad at. Obviously, the Kristaps one, but like that's something like it's not like it's up in the air. I think the Mavericks will overall win this trade. Dennis Smith is obviously not panning out to what at least we thought he would be when he dropped 30 points in his second game. But I think that Scott Perry hasn't really made that many disastrous moves. I don't think that he is someone where it's been in the past where it's like, oh, this guy's got to go. I think what's at least good or what looks bright at least is it's someone like this guy's a pretty good general manager, but you have to give respect to a new president who wants to maybe change something, which I mean is good. Like he didn't really ruin our franchise like Phil did. Like I think he made the best moves he could. Kevin Knox for Michael Porter, I regret that since the day it happened. I wanted Michael Porter, but can't complain. Back injuries, and then, the RJ Barrett draft, that was a gimme. Like he couldn't really take anyone else. So like when I look at his trades, the Melo trade was a good one for Mitchell Robinson. We got Mitch from that draft. That was all him. I thought what he did. I just thought that he kind of was the first general manager in like a while to kind of understand what we wanted to do. But there were some points where he didn't do it right. But at least, I feel like he kind of knew what the goal was and kind of leaned towards doing that, but couldn't fully lean towards doing that.
Yeah, I think part of it too is the expectations game. There was so much expected from what the Knicks were going to do in free agency.
Right.
Because of the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving rumors reporting. It was like, okay, everything else felt like a letdown, and because of that, if they had just like kept, I don't want to say kept expectations down, but if expectations stayed down and they continued on a much slower trajectory, I think it would have been possible for this to be seen as like a positive year forward. Instead, all that got muddled. It made the job that they were doing look worse, and it's hard to escape that. Part of the job of running a team is the success, and part of it is what it looks like. And Scott Perry and Steve Mills kind of lost that perception battle. But I think it's hard to say that they had any really bad moves other than the Kristaps Porzingis trade. I think that one was bad at the time. It hasn't aged well for them either. And when you trade away a franchise player, an all-star who's like 23, I think, 24, it's hard to live that down.
No, it's definitely not been bright years in New York. But my last question for you is, if you were like the president of the Knicks, what would be, let's say this summer and next regular season, what is your goal? What is your trajectory? What are you trying to do in free agency?
We're talking about the off season.
Let's say you're the president for the off season. What's your goal for the future, and what are you doing in this off season?
This off season, I'm trying to find young guys that I can take a chance on, that have some promise, and bring them in. I'm considering whether to trade the first round pick or maybe a young veteran, someone in their mid 20s, not like 30. Right. Because I think because of this draft being so uncertain, and it seems like everyone's saying there's so many more question marks than usual, this might be the time to try to trade a draft pick for a young guy who can still play, contribute for you going forward. And I'm trying to keep the cap open too. Right. Don't use the assets now, and just build slowly. Like, take the next year to try to build slowly if you can, and set yourself up for the summer of 2021. Not necessarily to be as a team that's like chasing after Giannis, but just a team that's in a good spot with a good young core and cap space that you can sell in free agency or make a smart move in a trade to potentially become a playoff team the year after that.
I agree. I kind of already said this, but I would sign younger guys. Just try to let the young guys take the team, let them get the experience that they need, especially the guys we already have on our team, like Knox and Ntilikina. I wouldn't force free agency so much that like you're like, okay, let's get 7 more guys like we did last year, and then bump all these guys down. Like we bumped Dotson down and Trier. It's like, what are you doing? Like, we literally like are on this path of the young guys. We went 17 wins last year. Like, let the young guys play it out. And then you bump everyone down. Knox gets less minutes than Ntilikina. So I think, the goal for this year is kind of let the young guys play. Get guys that maybe could help them but not play as much. And you should probably let them know before that. And, maybe like even like a Zach Randolph 4 years ago. Like, if he was like still in the NBA, I know he's not here anymore. But like, have someone like him, like when he was on the Kings, he wasn't playing that much. He was there, I think, Marvin Bagley's first year. Marvin Bagley, I think Randolph started for like 5-10 games, but then Bagley jumped right in, and something like that. Like, let these guys play. Let them learn from other people as well. Don't let it be like young guys running around doing whatever they want. But I think that's what you should do. And I think as well, you should leave the cap space open. And the one last thing I want to ask you is, I know there's been rumors about DeMar DeRozan. Do you like DeMar? Would you want to see him on the Knicks or no?
I don't know if he's a good fit for them necessarily. I also don't know if he's going to opt out. If salary cap falls and so few teams have money to spend, he might just take I think he's got $30 million coming from the Spurs next season. It might just be easier to opt in and take the $30 million you're going to get and go for free agency next summer. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's going to be an option for the Knicks. I don't know. What do you think? Like, would you want him on the Knicks next year?
I think it's going to depend on the money he wants, because I believe it's $27 million, like around the $30 million mark. Does he believe that he could still, do the production he's been producing for the past 5, 6, 7 years for the next 4 years? Or does he think like, look, I may start to drop off in a year or two. Let me take my money. Let me get my 4 years now, just in case, as a protection. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard he's angry in San Antonio, so maybe he'll opt out and sign back with San Antonio. I don't really know if he wants the money. I'm not sure. I think it could be an interesting option. I don't know
Yeah.
how well that spaces the floor once again because he's not known as a 3-point shooter ever. In his career, he's never been known as a 3-point shooter. So I don't know how that spreads the floor. I think we need to work on that this summer. Um, but I think he's someone that kind of plays like RJ. I know he's been compared to RJ, so maybe he could be like also a mentor for RJ and someone that could teach him. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. But he's still a good player. You can't take that away from him. So if the Knicks want to get a pretty solid player, like I wouldn't be angry at it. But again, I think it may depend on how much money we give him and for how long we give him that money because I don't know how long the production's going to stay.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you being on the show. Um, um, and yeah, that's really it. I had a great time with you. Hopefully, we could do this again some other time. Maybe when James Dolan steps down or someone else gets kicked out of MSG. I don't know. But thank you again. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Toby. We can do this again soon.
Bye-bye.